Dr. Paxson's office was spacious and illuminated by a large window that overlooked the hospital courtyard. The walls were adorned with diplomas and certificates bearing witness to years of dedication to medicine. He sat behind a mahogany desk, his face marked by concern. "Olivia," he began, looking deep into her eyes. "As you can see, we are facing a critical situation here." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "Things are very bad, Olivia." With her upright posture and serious expression, Olivia firmly held a hefty stack of papers, complaints. Many of them detailed patients' dissatisfactions and concerns about the hospital's therapy department, one of the most renowned in the city. She raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed by the magnitude of the problem. "Dr. Paxson, I'm seeing these complaints, but this didn't start yesterday, did it?" she inquired. He sighed, running a hand through his gray hair. "No, Olivia. When I took on the role of administrator of this hospital 6 months ago, everything seemed to be under control on paper. This department was our pride. So, I decided to focus on areas that I believe needed more of my attention. But over time, I began to notice discrepancies, patients being discharged prematurely, inconsistent reports. Everyone here insisted that everything was fine, but something deep down told me otherwise." The door swung open abruptly, and a secretary with a hurried expression walked in, carrying another pile of papers. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, slightly out of breath. "But here are more complaints that just came in. Should I file them, or—" She paused, glancing at the trash can with a suggestive look. Olivia, still processing the information, took some of the papers and began reading them quickly. Her face paled. "These are complaints from patients who were discharged and instructed to continue treatment at home. But according to these reports, they were in perfect condition." She looked up, meeting Dr. Paxson's gaze. "This is unacceptable." With a gentle yet firm gesture, Olivia placed the papers on the dark wooden desk. The soft light from the desk lamp reflected in her determined eyes, her brown hair tied in an elegant bun, and her professional attire contrasted with the youthfulness of her face. Despite her age, Olivia had already earned a notable reputation. Her determination and medical skills had saved countless lives in the chaos of the emergency department. Some time ago, she had received a tempting offer to work at a high-end private clinic. However, upon visiting the location, she felt a void. The clinic, despite its luxury, lacked the urgency and raw reality she was accustomed to. Facing serious illnesses and daily challenges were what drove her, and she wasn't ready to give that up. So, she chose to stay. Looking directly at Dr. Paxson, she inquired, seeking clarity. "Dr. Paxson, now that I'm here, what exactly are my responsibilities? How far does my authority extend in this department?" Dr. Paxson, an older man with lines of experience etched by time and responsibility, looked at Olivia and said, "Olivia, I trust your judgment. I know you have the ability to discern what's best for this department. I can't simply fire the staff without concrete evidence, and you know that the former head of the department is on leave. The information I have suggests that he won't be returning. So, the leadership of this department is now in your hands. If you find it necessary, you can restructure the team, whether that means firing or retraining them. The decision is yours." Olivia, with her upright posture and serious demeanor, said, "Before formally introducing you to the team, it would be good if you could give me a day or two. We need to ensure that everything is in order." Olivia, sensing the confusion reflected in the administrator's eyes, clarified her plan. "Doctor, I have a slightly different approach in mind. Tomorrow, I intend to join the cleaning crew. I think one of our janitors deserves a day off. And if I feel that one day isn't enough to understand the hospital's dynamics, maybe I'll do it for 2 days." Dr. Paxson, surprised by the audacity of his new department head, arched an eyebrow and asked somewhat incredulously, "Do you really intend to do everything a janitor does?" From cleaning the hallways to maintaining patient rooms? With a confident smile and a determined gleam in her eyes, Olivia replied, "Exactly, Doctor. I believe that to lead, I first need to understand all aspects of the hospital, including the challenges faced by our cleaning staff." Dr. Paxson, still trying to wrap his head around the idea, said, "All right, Olivia. I admire your approach. But do me a favor, if you come across any unforeseen or complicated situations, please inform me immediately." Olivia nodded. "You can count on it, Doctor. I'll be vigilant." At the break of dawn, Olivia carefully selected an outfit that had belonged to her grandmother, a combination of a long skirt and a long-sleeve blouse with a faded floral pattern that gave her a vintage air. Wearing comfortable low shoes, she walked with deliberate and slow steps down the extensive hospital corridor. Suddenly, a nurse with impeccable appearance, dressed in her pristine uniform and hair tightly pulled back into a bun, intercepted her path, blocking her with a disdainful look. "Excuse me," the nurse said with a condescending tone, "but who are you, and why are you walking around here like you own the place?" Maintaining her composure, Olivia replied, "Good morning. I'm here to cover for Mrs. Holmes. She's not feeling well, and I've been asked to take over her shift today." The nurse raised an eyebrow in surprise. "You're the replacement, a janitor?" Olivia nodded, pointing to a door along the corridor. "Yes, I'm the janitor for today. I believe the storage room where they keep the cleaning supplies is over there, right?" The nurse, clearly amused by Olivia's old-fashioned appearance, let out a sarcastic laugh. "My goodness, you look like you just stepped out of a history book. That outfit is from 100 years ago." Unperturbed, Olivia countered with an ironic smile, "Actually, no. But since you mentioned it, maybe you should hike up the 30 floors of this hospital and check on the bedpans waiting for you." The nurse was momentarily speechless, her face flushing with indignation. Olivia continued on her way, head held high, as the nurse watched her, muttering to herself, "What a strange figure." In a well-lit corner of the hospital, Virginia appeared visibly upset, her eyes flashing with irritation. A coworker, noticing her expression, cautiously approached and asked, "Virginia, what happened? Who got you so worked up?" With an ironic smile, Virginia replied, attempting to mask her frustration, "Joseph, are we working together today?" Joseph, a man of enigmatic posture and piercing gaze, nodded. "Yes, it seems so." Excited about the prospect, he then mischievously pinched her lightly. Virginia, taken aback by the gesture, let out a small yelp, more from surprise than pain. "Joseph, what was that?" Joseph was an intriguing figure at the hospital. A year ago, when he joined the team as a nurse, many had labeled him an underdog. However, as time passed, it became evident that he possessed extensive knowledge, often surpassing even the most experienced doctors and nurses. Curious about his presence, the staff tirelessly tried to unravel the mystery behind his identity and expertise. Why would someone so erudite choose to work there in a position seemingly beneath his capabilities? However, Joseph was a master at evading direct questions, always maintaining an air of mystery. This led the staff to nickname him Dr. Mystery. What frustrated everyone even more was his apparent indifference to whispers and speculations. He simply continued his work with dedication and professionalism, never revealing more than necessary about himself. During the lunch break, as the hospital corridors buzzed with activity, Olivia began her cleaning rounds with a mop in hand. She scrubbed the floor with precise and rhythmic movements, but her ears remained attuned to her surroundings. In one of the wards, an elderly patient with tired eyes and a trembling voice lamented, "I didn't receive my injection this morning. The nurse, she was sleeping. And the breakfast they gave me, burnt porridge. It was inedible." Before she could continue, a doctor in a white coat and an impatient expression interrupted her. "What did you expect? This is a public hospital. If you're not satisfied, why don't you go to one of those fancy private hospitals? Or better yet, go back home. Olivia paused her cleaning for a moment, observing the scene. The patient, with tears in her eyes, seemed utterly helpless. The doctor, showing no empathy, turned his back and exited the ward. The nurse Olivia had encountered earlier approached the doctor, and the two began to converse in hushed tones. Though Olivia managed to overhear, give her more sedatives. If she sleeps more, she'll complain less. Besides, rest aids in recovery, right? And anyway, we need to save on medication. The doctor let out a sarcastic laugh. Olivia felt a knot in her stomach. This wasn't just negligence or unprofessionalism, it was something far more serious. They were compromising patients' health and well-being, and that was unacceptable. She knew she needed to take action. Olivia knew she couldn't keep following the doctor and the nurse, or her true identity would be discovered. She returned to her task of cleaning the floor. But as she looked at the mop, she realized it was riddled with holes and wear. It was nearly useless to try to clean anything with it. With determination, she headed to the ward, hoping to find some cleaning materials in better condition. "Excuse me, do you know where I can find a new mop? This one is in terrible condition, and I can't clean properly with it," Olivia said, displaying the worn mop. The nurse, looking up from her work, glanced at the mop and said condescendingly, "The janitors probably bring those mops from home." "From home? But the hospital has a budget for this." "New mops should be provided regularly," Olivia responded, clearly indignant. Virginia, who had been engrossed in her phone, looked at Olivia with a surprised and puzzled expression. "What?" Before Olivia could reply, a male voice rang out from behind her. "Who is this making such a fuss?" Olivia turned and recognized the doctor. She had seen earlier he was regarding her with a challenging gaze. "Who are you?" the doctor asked, sizing her up. "I'm the substitute janitor for today," Olivia replied, trying to remain composed. "So go and do your job." "Stop wasting time," the doctor said, clearly impatient. "But I really need a new mop." "I can't do my job with this," Olivia insisted, showing them up again. The doctor let out a sarcastic laugh. "My dear, it's just a mop. Use whatever you find. Even that outdated skirt you're wearing would do." Indignant, Olivia retorted, "You have no right to comment on my attire." Virginia stifled a laugh, clearly finding the situation amusing. Feeling humiliated and with no options, Olivia turned and left the ward, determined to find a solution on her own. Joseph, the nurse known for his calm and observant demeanor, was walking slowly toward the nursing station when he heard a stifled laughter. He raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's so funny?" he asked, looking around and noticing that the doctor had already left. Virginia, with a mischievous smile, recounted the incident with Olivia, the substitute janitor, and her argument about the mop. As she finished, she let out another laugh as if finding the situation amusing. Joseph frowned, clearly not finding it funny. "I don't understand. Why is this so amusing to you?" Taken aback by Joseph's reaction, Virginia hesitated for a moment before replying, "Oh, it's just that she's just a janitor and was acting like she knew everything." Joseph stared at her, his penetrating eyes seeking to understand the logic behind Virginia's statement. "So are you saying that custodians or janitors can't be intelligent?" "Well, that's not what I meant. I mean, she's just a janitor, right?" Virginia tried to justify herself, feeling increasingly uncomfortable under Joseph's inquisitive gaze. With an exasperated sigh, Joseph replied, "Virginia, sometimes you truly surprise me, and honestly, I think you're being more ignorant than any janitor I've ever known." Without waiting for a response, Joseph walked away from the nursing station, determined to help Olivia. He headed to another department, hoping to find a suitable mop for the odd woman, as Virginia had described her. In a forgotten corner of the hospital, the cleaning supplies cabinet was empty. Mops, buckets, and rags that should have been there to facilitate the janitor's work had disappeared. It was known that many of the materials ended up being taken home by the staff, and Virginia, with her cunning gaze, was behind many of these disappearances. She was resentful, especially after the incident with Olivia, and was determined to get back at the janitor who had made her appear foolish in front of Joseph. After an unsuccessful search in the department, Joseph returned to the nursing station. Virginia, with a poorly disguised look of satisfaction, was shocked to see him holding a brand new mop. "Joseph, did you really go get a mop for that newbie?" Virginia asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Joseph, with his calm demeanor, replied, "I didn't run, just walked." Every employee in this hospital deserves proper working conditions, regardless of their role. Joseph continued, "She's just a janitor," exclaimed Virginia, her frustration evident, "and you're just a nurse who organizes pills and files," retorted Joseph, maintaining his composure. He walked over to the supply closet and knocked lightly on the door. "May I come in?" Inside the supply closet, Olivia was taking advantage of her brief lunch break to eat before her. A fresh salad with crisp vegetables and succulent shrimp. "Of course, what's up?" Olivia asked, surprised by the visit. "Brought you some new mops," Joseph said, extending them up. Olivia smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Joseph." But upon noticing Joseph's surprised gaze directed at her meal, she quickly covered her face with a napkin. Virginia, always curious and somewhat intrusive, peered into Olivia's lunch container and exclaimed, "Wow, I didn't know janitors earned so much that they could have shrimp for lunch." Olivia, feeling exposed, quickly closed her lunch container, wishing that the awkward moment would end soon. At dusk, the hospital was quieter, with most patients settled, and the corridors less bustling. Olivia was finishing her tasks, trying to ignore the jabs and sarcastic remarks that mainly came from Virginia and the doctor she had clashed with earlier. However, as she headed to the storage closet to put away her supplies, a noise from the doctor's lounge caught her attention. It was a muffled but clearly audible sound of laughter and elevated conversations. Curious, Olivia discreetly approached the slightly ajar door and peeked inside the room. Two doctors were seated around an improvised table. One of them was the daytime doctor she had crossed paths with before, and the other was a younger man in a still pristine white coat, probably preparing for the night shift. Between them were bottles of alcoholic drinks and half-filled glasses. The daytime doctor, with a malicious smile, said, "Don't worry about the new department head. Even if she decides to stay, we'll put her in her place. She'll dance to our tune." The younger doctor, with a relaxed laugh, replied, "Good to hear. If patients stop paying for any reason, how am I going to finish building my beach house?" Shocked by what she heard, Olivia silently stepped back, processing the conversation and considering how to respond to this revelation. With determined and steady steps, Olivia made her way to the hospital exit. The weight of the day reflected in each movement. Twilight was beginning to tinge the sky with shades of orange when Joseph, with his imposing posture, hurried to catch up with her. "Olivia, may I walk you home? It's getting dark, and it's not safe to walk alone at this hour," he offered, a note of concern in his voice. She gave him an assessing look, but with a touch of gratitude. "You don't need to keep up this act, Joseph. I already know that you know," he smiled faintly. "It's not hard to figure out that you're not exactly an ordinary janitor." With a graceful motion, Olivia removed the scarf covering her head, revealing her well-groomed hair. Joseph's eyes widened, surprised by the transformation. Well, Virginia may not be the nicest person, but she was right about one thing. "You definitely don't look like a janitor," Olivia left, the melodious sound cutting through the cool night air. "That's because I'm not. I'm the new department head." Joseph paused for a moment, clearly taken aback. "That is unexpected. So, you've seen all the chaos happening inside?" She nodded gravely. "Yes, I have, and I intend to do something about it." He looked at the imposing building behind them. So there's hope for change. Not just hope, Joseph. I assure you there will be changes. Many of them. As they walked side by side, the conversation flowed naturally between them. Joseph revealed that before becoming a nurse, he was a renowned surgeon. However, after the tragic death of a patient, an incident he wasn't responsible for, he chose a career change. Olivia, with a pensive expression, said, I can't understand. You have the talent and skill to save lives as a doctor. Why choose to be a nurse? Joseph looked at her, his eyes reflecting a depth of emotions. He didn't answer immediately, letting the silence speak for itself. They continued walking, each lost in their own thoughts, but united by a common purpose, to bring positive change to the hospital. At daybreak, Olivia, with a determined expression, entered the impeccably organized office of the hospital administrator. The scent of fresh coffee permeated the air, and Dr. Paxson, seated behind his mahogany desk, looked up to greet her. Dr. Paxson, Olivia began, her voice laden with seriousness, what I found here is more than a simple administrative issue. It's a hornet's nest. The doctor raised an eyebrow, clearly concerned. Really, Olivia? Is it that bad? She nodded gravely. It's beyond what I could have imagined. Honestly, the situation is so dire that the police should be involved. Dr. Paxson's face paled, and a shadow of sadness passed over his eyes. He knew the gravity of the situation, but hearing it from Olivia made it all the more real. However, Olivia, sensing the impact of her words, quickly added, but I understand the implications of involving the authorities. It could tarnish the hospital's reputation. We'll deal with this internally. Relief was evident on Dr. Paxson's face. Thank you, Olivia. I'm ready to face this. Are all the staff gathered in the conference room? They are, she confirmed. But before we go, I need to know something. There's a nurse here, Joseph. He's not just an ordinary nurse, is he? Dr. Paxson sighed deeply, his eyes reflecting a mixture of respect and sadness. Joseph is indeed much more than that. He was a brilliant surgeon. He performed a surgery on a patient who frankly didn't have good odds. Unfortunately, the patient passed away shortly after the procedure. Despite it being a decision made collectively with the family, they blamed him and sought authorities. The investigation cleared Joseph, but the trauma caused him to step back to a less prominent position. Surprised, Olivia questioned, "How do you know this story so well?" With a melancholic smile, Dr. Paxson replied, "Because I was there, Olivia. It happened at the hospital where I worked previously." With steady and determined steps, Olivia and the hospital administrator walked toward the therapeutic department. The murmur of voices could be heard coming from the staff lounge, a sign that the team was in full discussion. Without hesitation, Olivia opened the door with authority, causing all conversations to abruptly cease. The administrator, following closely behind her, entered shortly after, his imposing posture reinforcing the seriousness of the moment. Virginia, with wide eyes, recognized Olivia immediately. She quickly leaned toward the doctor at her side, whispering something in his ear, clearly in shock. Olivia, noticing the gesture, gave her a piercing look, causing Virginia to straighten up immediately. With a clear and firm voice, Olivia began, "I see familiar faces here, and some seem surprised to see me in this position. For those who are still trying to understand what's going on, allow me to clarify. My name is Olivia Baiton, and I am the new head of this department. Before officially taking over, I found it necessary to understand the dynamics and challenges faced here. Therefore, yesterday, I went undercover as a janitor." She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. "What I witnessed was, in one word, shocking. I won't detail every failure or negligence I observed, as that would take us hours. But I want everyone to know that I'm not someone who can be manipulated or underestimated, as some here seem to believe. Looking directly at Virginia, she continued, "For those who feel they can't adapt to the new direction this department will take, I suggest you consider your options. Those who choose to stay will be rigorously evaluated, from doctors to nurses. The era of complacency is over." Joseph, with a relaxed posture, was comfortably seated on the couch, attentively observing the expressions of each person in the room. A playful smile danced on his lips, revealing his amusement with the situation. Suddenly, he stood up and exclaimed with enthusiasm, "I've made up my mind. I'm staying." Olivia, surprised, turned to him with a piercing look. "Joseph, you don't understand. You can't stay here." Joseph's smile instantly vanished, replaced by a look of confusion. Olivia, sensing his reaction, softened her stance and smiled gently. "Let me clarify, Dr. Paxson, I think you can explain better." Dr. Paxson, the hospital administrator, gave a meaningful glance to Joseph, who immediately tensed, recognizing the man before him. "Joseph," Dr. Paxson began, "may I address you by your name? We have a team in the surgery department that's overwhelmed. Dr. Dale, an experienced surgeon, and a talented young doctor are practically living at the hospital due to the demand. Some complex surgeries require the skill of 2 surgeons. We need you there." After a moment of reflection, Joseph finally stood up, determined. "When do I start, Dr. Paxson?" With an ironic smile, Dr. Paxson replied, "Yesterday would be ideal, Joseph." The room began to empty out except for Virginia, who remained seated, seeming lost in thought. Olivia approached her, curious, "What are you waiting for?" Virginia, with teary eyes, choked out, "I don't want to be let go. My father will send me to the village to live with my aunt." Olivia, with an understanding smile, responded, "Then let's make sure you learn to do your job properly. Otherwise, I'll have to inform your father." Virginia nodded, a shy smile appearing on her face. At the end of the day, Joseph entered Olivia's office, hesitating. "Olivia, today has been a hectic day, but one thing I thought about yesterday still remains. Would you like to go out with me?" Olivia, surprised and amused, laughed. "You know, I was thinking the exact same thing." Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.